Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Tea Talks. I had the opportunity to sit down and speak with George. He has a wholesaling business and we talked about a lot in terms of like systems and his journey as well. Enjoy the episode. Hey George, how are you doing today, man? You good?
I'm fine, Keith. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. You're doing a lot. You got a lot on your table. So the fact that you're taking time to come on, it means a lot to me. So thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So
Pleasure's all mine.
So tell me about yourself, man, and especially for the audience members. How did you get started in real estate?
That's a good question, Keith. About 2 years ago, maybe a little bit before that, when I was working at the post office as a regular mail carrier, I kind of, I love, it was funny when I first got in there, I was struggling, like, man, I can't do this because I started out part-time. And once I got the rhythm and got hired on full-time, it seemed like after a while I was in a rut. It was like,
Yeah,
man, there's got to be more because I would see a lot of
yeah,
my fellow employees like 50, 60 years old, just grumpy and like, man, why you so grumpy, man? There's got to be more to life.
yeah, yeah.
And so that got me into like finding out different ways to like I guess invest and reading books and learning more about myself at the same
Nice.
time, Keith. So yeah, joined another mentorship called Fortune Builders, and it wasn't what I thought it was. Granted, it was kind of like sub two where they give you the information,
Right,
but it's up to you to consume it and take that
right.
action.
So just a
But
course, pretty
there's of
much.
course,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but kind of having that sour taste in my mouth and like, man, I thought I was gonna get my hand held the whole time,
Yeah,
and it
but
wasn't like that.
yeah, I know a lot. You never get. It's really difficult to find like mentorships like Sub Two. They call it a mentorship, but really it's like the community, right? They have
True,
that for people to help each other out. You don't really get that anywhere else, from my experience, even.
true,
So that is
true.
a big benefit. So what happened after that? After the Fortune course that you took?
Fortune Builders, like I said, I had a sour taste in my mouth, but
Yeah.
then fortunately, thanks to Fortune Builders, and I guess that in the long run, learning perspective.
Right.
It may be cloudy that day, but you got to think about the sunlight behind that cloud and
Right.
looking at it a different way. Because thanks to Fortune Builders, I was able to meet a couple people that are within the sub-2 mentorship that actually went through Fortune Builders. So it's like kind of finding that commonality. We're like, oh, I'm not alone,
Yeah.
or I'm not the only dummy that went that route. But obviously, learning that I'm in the right place, but meeting different people and helping me along the way. And
Nice.
some of them I still have relationships to this day. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Awesome, man. So then, at what point? Like, I'm guessing you bought some real estate before you joined Sub Two, right?
No,
No.
first, no,
Nice.
never done sales, never done real estate. Just knew that for some reason every other job I had before, Keith, I love like I think now that I know what kind of personality I do have, I'm a
Yeah.
yellow and I'm a green. I
Oh
don't
no.
like to piss people off. I like to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get off a track, like, oh, let's do
Yeah.
this. Like, oh, this is too hard. Let me do this. But learning myself better now as a business owner, like we mentioned before we got on, it's hard. It's hard, but it's worth it. It's learning that you're not supposed to run a business to be in it. You're
Right.
supposed to run the business to have the right people in the place, the right systems, and have it go full motion so you can go do other things and kind of keep up with our mentor pace as
So
we're learning and growing.
yeah. So okay. So tell me about that. Break that down for me. So after you got into Sub Two, right? You wanted to get some deals and everything, and I'm guessing you kind of went the wholesale route, right? Is that right?
Yes,
Right. So when
right.
you went the wholesale route, you started getting on calls, right? But when did you make the transition from just, trying to make the calls and, wholesaling a deal versus trying to actually build a business, like build a system or like,
Okay.
hire a,
Good.
when did you make that transition?
It was like about a couple months after joining Sub Two, where I would keep hearing, "Hey, if you don't know what you're doing, join a team that knows
Yeah.
what they're doing."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
starting from the bottom, like I said, cold calling, getting that experience, and learning, like, wow, it takes where I'm at right now. The guy that has the cold callers, the dialer,
Yeah.
and texting, it takes about 15 touches, whether it's through the cold call or through the text, to for that person to actually answer the phone and say,
15
"Hey."
touches.
I
Fif-
believe so at that time,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So you got to consistently be like calling them back or texting them back again and again until you can actually get them on the phone. Okay.
Right. Or
That's,
having like these meetings based on, okay, what are we doing
right.
this week? And like
Hmm.
looking at the numbers that make sense and like knowing, okay, man, I contributed a lot. I did
Yeah.
almost 15,000 calls, and only
Oof.
a small percentage actually picked up.
Yeah. Okay,
And
nice. So what was the first system that you had to build? Like you probably had to like outsource or hire someone, right?
actually, currently right now, Keith, last couple months I reached out to one of my partners, Mark Anthony,
Oh,
and
nice.
he kind of helped me by understanding what I wanted, which I finally understood what I wanted based on working with different teams.
Yeah.
And granted, I had a lot of traction with them, but I still wasn't like, I guess it's learning and growing.
Yeah.
It's like going to Pizza Hut and seeing the pizzas fall on the ground, and they're telling, "Hey man, pick it up, put it in a box, and deliver that bad boy." So we're like, this doesn't seem right, but I like the system. So it
Yeah.
goes back to perspective, taking the good and the bad, and
Yeah.
creating your own thing. To where right now I'm in the process of kind of having a little bit of a pipeline coming through via text campaigns
Okay.
mainly,
All right.
and responding to the yeses and the nos, and just going from there. And
So I'm guessing you're just pulling lists, right, for phone numbers, and then for text, I guess you have like a software or you're using a website, some kind of platform to be able to like send out a standardized text to all of those, right? Are you focused
yes,
on like for foreclosure deals or like what's your or like low equity deals or what kind of lists are you pulling?
well, primarily foreclosures, Keith.
Nice. Yeah.
Foreclosures, and then direct to seller. I have some people that I've joined forces with that are actually bringing me different, because they have subscriptions to other platforms that do provide the data.
Right.
And
Okay.
so
To pull
I
lists.
try to,
Yeah.
yeah, I try to keep them organized to where, okay, Keith gives me this list, let me put it in my system, but somehow let me label it to where if the
Yeah.
deal does get bought or wholesaled, I can let you know,
Oh,
hey Keith,
sweet.
I'm about to wholesale. Do you want it yourself? If not, then we can coordinate the way we have to pay you out. Or if you
Okay.
just, hey, I don't want it, like just wholesale it and give me a piece. And so at that point, and those are things I'm still kind of working out to
Working
where
out,
obviously
right?
it's giving
Nice.
back the value you give me as well, and
Yeah.
obviously continuously making
Yeah.
that happen.
So I know, like, okay, so then you pull the list, right? And then you have like, people or yourself, you can just call everyone as well. And I know you mentioned to me that you had experience like hiring a VA. How did that go? Because I'm assuming you hired the VA to make the phone calls, right? What were the
Right.
struggles there? Because I know a
Well,
lot of people have had bad experiences with that.
mhm,
And I think that's really interesting because, there's something to learn there. So
true,
what was
true.
your experience from that?
Well, my experience, kids, when I first started was thinking that they knew what to do without me knowing what to do.
What to do?
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's hiring somebody, obviously learning that they are your extension, they are the forefront, they're an image of you. So if you don't spend time with them, letting them know what you want, how do you
Yeah.
expect them to give you what you want if you're not communicating with them?
Yeah. So training becomes a huge part of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Training those systems to where a lot of times, kids, I'm learning there's a lot of turnover to
Yeah.
where if you were my lead manager and obviously, hey man, I help y'all, let's do role playing, let's do this, to where you get good and like, oh man, George, I appreciate you, other than a 10%, all this you're pouring into me, but it's time for me to do my own thing. So like,
Yeah.
oh man, because I know Keith's not gonna stay with me the whole time because I want you to grow, just like what Pace mentions all the time.
Uh,
It's you growing, but also having that system to where now I can put the other person in there, and based on what we've been going through, learn have like certain things either like record it, certain like little
right.
small videos, like this is what your daily objections should be.
Yeah.
This is what I expect from you. You have any questions, let me know. And so a lot of those recordings may have you in there to
Oh,
where like
nice. Okay.
it's like trial and
So
error. Hmm.
so you actually build out like a manuscript or like some kind of a training manual, right? As you're training to, I guess, when you make a mistake, you find out and then you change that up, record that, and then that's what you have for the next VA or the next student or person that you hire on board, right? So
Right.
then
That's the goal. Yeah, that's
that's
the
the
goal
goal,
right
yeah.
now.
So then, okay, so on one end to build a system, you're maybe like hiring one or two or three VAs or people, and then you're building your training manual. So you have a training
Right.
manual, you're also hiring, but at the same time, you want one of them to become the lead manager or like a supervisor so that
Yes.
you can stop doing the work. And that's when you have the system. You have them and then you
Exactly.
have the guy in the middle. But that would suck if the guy in the middle just leaves but he needs
Right.
to grow. So then how do you retain there? Because now you have a question of like if they're leaving, what are they leaving for? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Um.
maybe is it the pay? Is it something else, incentive, or is it because they want to start their own wholesaling business, or what is it?
I mean, I think it's just natural to know that people are gonna leave, but at least
Yeah.
leaving better than they came in there. You know,
Yeah.
getting the training from you, and kind of like a child. When you have a child, you know,
Uh,
obviously that kid's not gonna stay with you forever, but you
okay.
want them to learn and grow. But also learning that just like with me, learning from the different teams that I
Yeah.
learned a lot of great things, but I also seen a lot of bad things. But
Yeah.
the whole point is not to point out the bad things; is try not to do the bad things
Yeah.
and try new things because we're consistently always learning and growing. But to answer your question, is to have those systems in place. That way, when the next person does come in, you hopefully you want them to stay, but where they can possibly grow, like you said,
Yeah.
from cold calling to lead managing to being acquisitions to maybe being a TC to being a dispositions or underwriter. So many functions
Yeah.
that
So how do you
uh,
divide that up then? Because like I know typically in wholesaling businesses you have the three big sections, right? The lead management, you have the acquisitions, and then you have the disposition side. Right? Lead management is just finding the deals.
right.
Acquisitions, right? The numbers, the paperwork, that putting everything together, right? So the deal comes together, and then you buy.
Mhm.
It works out, and then the disposition is pretty much like finding a buyer to buy the deal, right?
Right.
If it's wholesaling. So then when you have that, like, is it the people that you're hiring on the lead manager side that you bring to the acquisition, or are you building a separate team from ground up for acquisition? How is that set
Um,
up?
So far, what I'm learning is when you first start, obviously you're by yourself, and you
Yeah,
start bringing people in, and it's you sharing what you've learned so far, and they may be adding to what you already had to. Where is you're creating that core, and
yeah,
it goes back to learning. Keith, one of your original questions, like learning through failure, is like,
learning
man,
through
this is not
failure.
working, and having that humility, like, man, I effed up, but
Yeah,
what was good about it and what was bad, and creating that to where it's being able to get that feedback from your peers or from
people's.
your fellow workers, and
Yeah,
they
or
feel
even
like they're
employees.
contributing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's cool, man. That's really interesting. So then, when you're building this, I'm guessing in terms of like training manuals, everyone is also getting a training manual, right? The underwriter, the
Yes.
dispo guy, the okay. So when does it actually become like hands off, or does it ever feel like it becomes hands off? Because I feel like you're always,
Yeah.
like you always have the next level of work to do. am I
Yeah.
am I wrong? So,
No, you're right, Keith. And learning also from our peers and other people that are doing it bigger. It's always asking them what are they doing different to where I'm learning, Keith, in this. I don't know about your like background as far as being raised, but we were raised
yeah,
don't cheat, don't copy. But
yeah,
man, if Keith is doing something great in Canada, why can't I do the same thing? And if you're willing to give me the information, then cool, man. Let me do the same thing. How are
yeah,
you doing this? Oh, I'm keeping up with KPIs. What are KPIs? And then I'm learning from you. Oh shoot, I
yeah,
need to keep a KPI so I can give my people a certain standard to keep up with.
yeah.
Like whether it's 50 calls a day or 100 calls a day, and like what kind of production are we getting from our actions? I guess if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, well, what's a KPI? Because I know a lot of
Oh,
people watching probably don't know that.
right. Oh, good question. I'm barely learning that key point indicators. What
Okay.
part of the business is being measured? Because I believe there's a phrase, what gets measured can be improved. And
Right.
so if you don't measure, you kind of know to where learning from our community, like it takes 50 leads to get to one deal.
50
And so
leads to get to one deal. Damn.
one deal.
Yeah.
To where if I want 2 to 3 deals, that means I'm roughly around 150, 200 leads. And they could be prospects at the time.
Yeah.
But obviously, then it goes down to how much money does it cost to get those leads? What is the quality of it? And how do
Yeah.
I do the stacking thing to where you're stacking one problem like tax liens on top of foreclosures, on top of vacancy, to where your chances are higher that they may be interested to sell.
Yeah. Man, that's a lot. The so when you're doing this and when you're actually like building the business floor, you have to always consistently learn, right? So I'm guessing what you do is you just go out to other people who are already doing the wholesaling business, and then you just kind of learn from them, right?
Right.
So in this stance, do you do like coaching? Because I know some people do coaching, mentorship. Do you consistently do that, or is it just different? You just like build a relationship with them and just have a conversation with them.
I'm trying to be that coach to where I just say
Yeah.
my goal is to like bring people in and kind of hold their hands to where
Yeah.
nobody held my hand, but
Oh,
I'm
that's
learning that our
nice.
time is valuable. It's
Yeah.
like, man, am I spending the right time with the right people? But then learning to make it less about myself and more about others. But also, it's like having to find that middle point where one of my partners, viewer, says, George, you need to learn how to be a good guy and not a nice guy. Because
Oh
sometimes
wow.
you do get ran over. Because a lot of the people, they take from you. They take,
Yeah.
take, 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 and then you don't hear nothing from them anymore. To are like, hey, either I know what I'm talking about, or
Oh
or they just wanted that little bit and took it away. But obviously, it's learning that take it with a grain of salt. Like I guess I didn't know what I was talking about, so I took that information and went with it. But
yeah.
also learning that I am getting better from teaching as well by repeating what I'm learning.
So how do you retain that? Like how do you actually make that like pivot from
Mm-hmm.
being the nice guy to being the good guy where you're giving the value but you're actually getting something in return? Because that's I mean, hey, I'm the nice guy too, right? I just
Yeah.
give and give like all the time,
Right.
and it's sometimes like difficult because you can lose people or
Yes.
so how do you do that? How do you make that pivot?
That's a good question. I mean, so far, like say it's being, I think it starts with yourself, knowing what you want and realizing, if this is worth it or do I feel good by giving? Because some people can, like I say, if a millionaire gives away a lot, they're
Yeah,
not really losing if they have a business that's continuously bringing them a monetary value
that's
compared
true.
to, yeah. But I guess it's learning. The more you give, the more you'll receive. Basically, it goes back to one of the key books they tell us to read about the Go Giver.
Yeah,
It's like, let's keep this deal may not work for me. Here you go, and not expect any monetary value back. But because I did that for you later on when I may need something. You know what, George?
yeah,
He helped me out. He did me a solid back then. I want to work with him, and then obviously it just goes down to networking, meeting different people, seeing what you can help them with. There may be something simple. You know what, George? This person only speaks Spanish, and I don't know Spanish. Do you think you can help me out? And I
oh
say,
nice.
okay. I mean, I'm trying to close my first deal in Spanish, so
Yeah.
I'm getting that out of it. It may not be monetary, but at least it's giving me the chance to practice.
Yeah, and it's, build probably a new skill set there as well, right?
Hmm.
So that's pretty good. So
Yeah.
man, that's like a lot to really unpack. Because I have another question. So let's say you know because you're talking about partners, and
Right.
when you make a partnership and you bring someone on board, how does the conversation go about how you're splitting like the partnership? Because in
Uh,
wholesale business, because I already know
right.
for sure that usually someone has a really good skill set. It's pretty obvious you're a closer, right? You
Hmm.
have that skill set. So if you're bringing on someone who's really good at, I don't know, dispositions, how do you go about having that conversation? And what is actually fair and what's not fair?
That's a good question.
Yes, it's a tough
It's
question, man.
a tough
Sorry.
question, but
Yeah.
perfect example. I have a lead that knock on wood, I'm closing this
Knock on
week,
wood. Yeah.
but it took. I thought I was gonna close this back in September, but
Oh.
because it was from a army buddy back when I was in the army, unfortunately her grandma passed away.
Oh. Sorry to
So
hear
it
that.
took
Yeah.
forever. Yeah, it took forever because of the probate situation. The property was never properly probated,
Oh.
and but then that goes back to learning as we go, learning the process of this got to be TC work, you know,
Yeah.
having those conversations. But now we're finally gonna close it, and I believe right now it's just me and the other Uber, to
Nice.
where I believe, hey, let's just cut it down in half, 50-50, because I had created the relationship back when I was in the army with her,
Yeah.
but I analyzed the deal. He helped me find a buyer for it, to where normally a disposition does give you half, and but it's a pretty good chunk to where it doesn't really hurt none of us, because half of one is better than half of nothing, and if I
Yeah.
he didn't find his buyer for me, then I would be stuck with a deal. But basically,
Yeah.
he's helped me out to where in that instance, I feel like it's 50-50. Maybe wrong, maybe right, but at the end of the day, I feel good. He feels good. But now, as we bring in more people, obviously, these are the people prospecting, to where
Yeah.
I'm learning from other teams I've been part of, to where your cold caller most likely it will be a VA or
Hmm.
be paid hourly. And normally, us as Americans, we're not going to do, mostly from what I've seen so far, like $20 or less. But
Yeah.
obviously, it's like, is this person actually calling? Are they really pumping out the cost? So, where normally you're gonna go the VA route, the virtual
Yeah.
assistant.
It's cheaper too.
Cheaper, yeah,
All right.
cheaper, because obviously it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
And normally, for a lead manager, what I'm seeing is 10%, your acquisition 20%, and then after that, I'm not sure. After that, I guess this position is 50. Obviously,
Wow.
yeah, because that
What?
person's bringing the value. They're actually bringing the buyer that's gonna actually buy the property from you.
So disposition is 50%.
Yeah, because you'll
Okay,
learn
I
as Yeah, well, and Keith, when you go to like Keekly and these other bigger dispositions,
Yeah.
that's what they're gonna ask you. Are you willing to go 50% off your assignment fee?
Damn. Okay.
Because they
But
create a relationship with all those buyers supposedly, but obviously it's a trial and error, and it's the
yeah.
price you pay for not networking. Because obviously, if you network, you create that buyers list, then that's one
Yeah.
less thing you have to worry about.
Yeah, that's true. So then, okay, so now you have this structure, and that makes sense what you're saying. As you go, you bring more people, and then everybody gets diluted in their shares, I guess, and then the amount becomes a little bit different. This
Right.
position is pretty high. I didn't know it was actually that high.
Yeah.
That surprised me. But now you have this business, right? How exactly do you take it to the next step to like scale?
I guess now that's a good question. We're in the
Yeah,
process of doing that because,
yeah,
like I say, having that integrator, but then us being more clear on our goals. Like saying
okay,
that to get one deal, you need to talk to 50 people. Now, how can we ramp this up, and can we do this ourselves, or we would have to add somebody to the team to help out? And
to
what I'm
scale.
learning is the scale is like you have to have the pressure on you in order to
Yeah,
scale because you had the problem like crap. Now you have to address the problem. But right now, if I'm like, oh man, I'm cool, I can shoot out about 150 texts and handle those.
yeah,
But say I crank it up to 100 to 300, then I may be having to respond to more people or trying out different methods of bringing in leads, whether it's PPC, which is pay per click, and PPL, pay per lead, or using these SEO systems. I forget what the SEO stands for, but basically they're generated from websites.
yeah. So, okay, so then I have like a kind of a unique question. So, how do you feel about debt when it comes to scaling? Because there's
That's a
some
good question.
people, not everyone.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone. Some wholesalers are like against it; they don't want to do it. But some who've been doing it for 2 years, right, or like a year, they have a little bit of money, so they go and borrow money to hire more VAs because their whole
Mhm.
mentality is okay. It works on this level, right? In order for me to do it on another level, I want to hire 10 more and then just not focus on like turnaround for the VAs
Right.
or whoever training to.
Mm.
So now we have 10, so we can do it 10 times more, right? And
Right.
then the goal for them is to make enough money so then they can pay off the debt eventually.
Right.
But not everyone's comfortable with it because
Mhm.
now you're putting yourself in a situation where you could risk like
Yeah.
ending the business because it's debt. You
Yeah.
usually it's
Well,
higher interest.
okay, that's a good question. I can be an example of that, and I'll share this with a lot of people. I was close to losing my house a couple times because of that.
Oh,
Because leaving the post office and not having no income each month,
that's not good, man.
you're you're
Yeah,
throwing money into the business, but it's not paying out.
yeah,
And obviously doing it by yourself, but learning from that mistake and knowing obviously if I could go on a religious level, it taught me that I have to have faith, and faith
yeah,
is gonna get you far. Obviously, you got to do a little bit of work too,
yeah.
because
Faith and
you
work
can.
together.
Yeah, faith and works. Yeah, faith without works doesn't work, or whatever the
Yeah,
phrase is. But yeah, my man, it will. I think that it's a risk, but obviously, if you can take that risk with somebody else, obviously, it don't hurt as bad.
yeah.
And then
You
being able to
dilute
have
it.
that humility and say, "Man, we effed up, but what did we learn from this? How can we get better?" Because a lot of times, in a business partnership, just like any other relationship, you have to work on your communication and be
Yeah,
clear on your goals or what you want to do, but also learn how to work with other people.
nice, nice. So, what's the next step for you and where you are right now? Just I guess building that business up and scaling it, or anything else?
Yeah, yeah, just going back to what I said, creating those either those SOPs,
Yeah,
standard operation procedures by using technology like Loom. Like, oh, these are my daily actions. And then right now I actually have a small team that I'm learning how to become that. Hey guys, come on, let's
yeah,
get these calls through.
yeah,
Supplying these lists and hey, can you call these people and using that strategy key to where it's like if I give you a list and I give two other people a list and you have your separate CRMs, then maybe that person I triple my chances. And if we're working together, then it's like, hey man, come on, if you get anything hot, bring it through me. Let's break it down. Let's underwrite it. Let's see if it's a deal. And then obviously I want to break you off a piece of that because I want you to continuously, help me out. And hopefully you're learning too by me spending time with you, by listening to your calls. You give me good feedback working on the good, like, oh man, this part's good, Keith, this part's good. But when they ask this, make sure you ask those questions. Become a better
nice.
active listener to where now I can scale up. So hopefully one of those people like, you know what, George, I want to close this deal. Hey, close it, bro. I want you to close it. Because obviously I'll get a smaller piece of the pie, but at the end of the day, going back to your question, it's not really about the money.
Yeah,
It's what you're producing. Because obviously, learning a phrase I'm sticking to is a lot of people think in order to be successful, it's based on the money you have. But learning that money is the byproduct of success, and success is the byproduct of the service you render each and every day.
I like
And
that line.
yeah,
That's really
yeah,
good. Yeah, it is true. Money is a byproduct of success, meaning, and I think success only comes from like continually learning and refining tools like you're doing, like
yes,
refining the SOPs, the training manual. So then, the people who are doing the work, even if they're new and they're coming to it not knowing anything, if they have the SOP, they should be able to do everything the previous experienced person did. And then the training manuals for them to actually naturally get better and better over time. So that's
exactly.
yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, man. Like I've always wondered like how like people get like like join businesses like wholesaling businesses, for example,
Right.
but at a higher level, with more people involved. And I
Hmm.
guess to what you were saying, it's just the SOPs. You just got to focus on
Right.
that again and again, right? And then eventually you get better.
Yeah, yeah, and just being obviously, it's like you being eventually working your way out of the business to where now you can see it from hindsight, from
Yeah.
outside. As a Keith, man, your numbers are low, man. How can I help you become better? Is there a problem that you're facing maybe at home, or have
Oh.
creating that culture too? Hey, man,
Oh
can you
yeah.
open office? I mean, open door. Tell me what's going. How can I help you? If there's somewhere out where I'm failing you, because at the end of the day, that is the bloodline, the lead managing, the entry. The
Yeah.
prospecting is, hey, maybe I need better VAs because their communication gets lost. Because sometimes knowing that somebody who is overseas doesn't understand those inside jokes. Or,
Yeah,
yeah,
different slang, different understanding, different joke. Yeah. So you have to really try to understand where they're coming from. Man, that's a whole different ball game.
yes, yes, it
That's
is.
not easy. That's very tough because you have to be in
Yeah,
their shoes, understand their culture, see where they're coming from, and then try to relate on their level, and then try to give
right.
them value where you can. Man.
Exactly. And then scaling, when you say scaling up, is like, all right, we're making so much money a month based on this. How can we make it better? And that's when you talk to your partner, kids. All right, should we jump on the PPL thing? Obviously it's more expensive, but the quality of leads should be better. But
Uh,
obviously we have to have the people ready because usually those people come from those websites where I
yeah.
want to buy my home, and you have to get on the phone exactly at that moment and become the active listener to where you pick up on things and lock it up and go from there.
Oh man, that's really good, man. I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
Man, I know we're running out of time. We got a couple a couple minutes left. Man, is there anything
Right.
else that you wanted to say before we have to go? Any
No,
last
man.
words? Yeah.
No, just like I said, it's a pleasure giving me this opportunity, Keith, and I can see you going very far from what
Oh,
you told
thanks, man.
me.
I
Yeah, you
appreciate
have
it.
that foundation set,
Do
and
I?
it's just being what they call, you're a success story. You coming from another country, even though it's Canada.
Yeah,
It's not like
it's
you're
right
coming
here.
overseas, but
Yeah,
learning, and that way you're become the success story for people like me that are born here and have no excuse. And we do buy the mentorship. And we're like, oh man, we've seen all these other people have success. Like, bro, or hey, girl, it starts with you. You have to know what you want. You have to go out there and get it and learn to be able to fail on your fall on your face. Be like,
yeah.
oh, that kind of hurt, but oh well, let me keep pushing. Yeah,
Man, I love that. I think that's very true. Like even for me, like because I told you like before this podcast like how I'm trying to like just focus on portfolio buys, but
right,
then when you're trying to just be a buyer, then it's really about stabilizing the portfolio that you're buying and trying to grow that and things like that. So that is a completely different business model. And for me, I don't really have lead management. My lead management is literally just connecting with wholesalers and looking at
right.
their list and then trying to
Hmm.
talk through them or DTS or DTA, whatever
Right,
the system is, just trying to see, because all I do is underwrite the deals, see if they work for my buy box. That's it.
right.
So
That's it.
yeah, so the rest of it is all just like there isn't a business there yet, but then the business ends up being on one side private, raising the private capital, right? On the
Right,
other side, having the network of like people who are finding the deals or wholesaling businesses or whatever it is, right? And then
right.
just being the middleman between those two. So I end up being my own acquisition person. And
Right.
that's what.
Wearing a lot of hats at the same
Yeah,
time.
man. Yeah, and it's and unfortunately, for when you're buying, like when you're trying to buy portfolios, it takes a few of them before you can start hiring out and doing things like that, because
True.
you don't get paid until the very end, right? The
True.
buyer
True.
doesn't get paid until the very end. Everybody gets paid first. The buyer gets paid last,
Yes.
and that's like years
That's
down.
very true.
So it's tough, right? But
Right.
baby steps. So, and one day eventually, I'll
Oh, you get there faster than you know, because it goes to that book, Keith. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, by Ed Milet. I
no,
think
I
it's called
haven't.
One More,
Oh
to where
yeah,
it's just going to that, hiring that one person or going to that one networking event, getting
yeah,
that one call, like, oh, it can change everything.
yeah,
To where you may have that property owner that owns bukus, loads of properties that they, for some reason,
yeah.
they like your tonality, they appreciate you listening to their problem, and like, you know what, Keith, I don't normally do this, but I'll give you seller finance at 0% at X amount of
Oh,
dollars a month for 50 years because
find
I
me,
know.
find me that guy.
Yeah,
Please
yeah,
find me
yeah.
that guy.
But it goes with you just, obviously pushing,
Yeah,
pushing, pushing, and yeah, having that opportunity to where it is, oh, you know what, I'm this old and I understand that, seller finance may not work, but let's put this in a trust to when you do pass away, your kids will get the benefits of these payments I'm giving you today.
I love that.
Or and just being that problem solver, because what it is, going back to what you're saying with property owners, obviously money is not their problem because they got it. So it's
Yeah,
finding
it's
that problem that you're trying to figure out that you can help them solve.
yeah. Man, I feel so. How do you say here's I know we're running out of time soon, but like, here's like one last question is especially because I struggled with this, right? If
Mhm.
there's already someone there, not direct to seller, but let's say another wholesaler or another realtor, right? How do you like try to find what the pain point is if there's someone else in the middle already? Sometimes it's very tough.
Yeah, just asking it out. You answer
As
your own
a
question. Yeah, just be, because obviously with direct to agent, obviously
yeah,
it's that one deal. Or once they figure out what you're working at, now they're gonna be finding those deals for you. And obviously, if they can trust you and know that they're not gonna be left out of the deal, because that's one thing. A lot of people
true.
come in and say, "I want a low ball, I want a low ball," but
Yeah,
then it's, "I want to do creative," and then instead of them saying, "You know what, Keith, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me?" Just say, "No, my seller doesn't want to do that." And then sometimes we fail to ask, why doesn't he want to do that? Why
yeah,
doesn't she want to do that? Please explain to me, because, and then boom, add that third party story. We've helped many property owners do this. And obviously my key is to keep you paid. So not only this deal, I want to do multiple deals with you. And you sell yourself, because at the end of the day, I'm learning that, Keith, it sells, but you're not selling something. You're selling yourself as a problem solver. And obviously
nice.
it's, and that if you're not that good at it, at what you're doing, may bring somebody else that is good at it,
Yeah,
and I'll do the rest. But at least you'll have a concept of what you want by
yeah,
creating that SOP or understanding. Hey, I'm not the best at it, but I know a little bit of it, but I need to bring somebody or willing to spend that money. Like you mentioned that question, like, do I get into debt to get out of debt? But at
yeah.
least in order to make money, you got to spend some money.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's how my whole life. But man, thank you. Pretty much, trust me. Man, I just use debt, and then I find a way to like make the cash flow
Right.
so I can pay off the debt again and again and again. It's a cycle. But
Right.
yeah, man, thank you so much, George. I feel like there's a lot of value I got out of this, and I'm sure the audience will too. So yeah, man, thanks, man, for coming on. I really appreciate your time and everything that you do. And
Right on,
hopefully
my man.
we'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, let's not make this the last time. Obviously, it's about, building these relationships, and I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll exchange information. If you need anything, I would love to give you my feedback and vice versa.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, man. I really appreciate
All right,
everything.
man. Thank you very much.